Hello viewers, welcome back to another video, and today it is Thomas's race review. Once again, it's Belgian Grand Prix edition, and we're going to chat about everything that needed discussing from the race. We had the rain delay, we had a less exciting race than I initially thought we were going to have, but regardless, we're going to look past that and we're going to dive into everything that needs discussing from the race. Just quickly, if you guys are enjoying the content, make sure to follow me on TikTok because I post a lot of short content over there, and also to join my Discord server to stay in touch with me and all my other subscribers. But without further ado, let's get straight into it. Okay, so as always, we're going to divide this video up into a few sections, a few different talking points, and I guess to start with, the main talking point of the Grand Prix wasn't really actually the Grand Prix, it was the rain delay, which we had for the first hour of the event. Now, obviously, this is sort of the main topic of debate, and it's always going to be, you know, it sparks a lot of controversy, how the FIA handled it, what the drivers thought, what the fans thought, and what it did to the whole spectacle. So I guess we're going to dive straight in with what I thought. As you guys might know, I am someone who's all about safety when it comes to F1. Sometimes we do have to sacrifice a bit of racing action for safety, but today, what do I think? I do think it was a bit excessive. When we see races, wet races such as today, I always think back to the safety element, and one story I think back to quite often is Jackie Stewart at the 1966 Belgian Grand Prix at the same track that we just visited this weekend. The reason I think back to it, it's a pretty extreme case of why we have safety in Formula 1 nowadays. The 66 race was absolutely torrential conditions. They shouldn't have been racing in those conditions at all, and Stewart, he suffered an accident, I believe, on lap 1, which caused him to leave the circuit. The car rolled several times before splitting in half and spilling engine and fuel oil all over where the car left. And due to the very limited safety precautions of the time, it meant that Jackie was trapped inside his March car for 28 minutes, sitting in a pool of flammable engine oil, with no seatbelt, and basically essentially being crushed by his own car. That's obviously a very extreme example, but it's what I think back to when we have these rain delays, and I do think it was a bit excessive. Like, obviously, there are drivers who believe we should have gone racing. We saw Verstappen's radio comment of him saying, oh, you know, it's dry, we got to get going, it's silly. And I do agree with that. What I think they should have done, do I agree with the rolling start? I do kind of agree. I see why they did the rolling start. But what I think they should have done, instead of peeling into the pits at the end of that first formation lap, what they should have done, the FIA, is let the cars run around under safety car, because if we've learned anything from the past, the best thing that clears the standing water, it's not the medical car, it's not a helicopter, it's not anything else. The best thing that clears the standing water are these Formula 1 cars. With ground effect, you know, like obviously they suck the air into the ground, but a side effect of that is it's a lot more effective at pushing standing water aside. And I think if the FIA had left the drivers out to trundle around the safety car, behind the safety car, while it had that big while we had that big rain spell, I think we would have gotten underway a lot sooner. And I think that should be the precaution or the system going forward. And yeah, to reiterate, the Formula 1 cars we have now in this day and age are the best vehicles at clearing standing water. So I think that should be the precaution and the system going forward, is that the cars, the drivers, are left out under safety car conditions to clear the standing water in these heavy rain spells. Another thing I just wanted to mention, I wanted to touch upon, was the issue of the standing start. Obviously, we saw the FIA went with a rolling start for the Grand Prix. A lot of people were quite unhappy with that decision, but I do see why they did it. There was a bit of standing water on the main straight, visibility, etc. That I don't mind. What I was unhappy about was some of the things which influenced that decision. Obviously, we heard Lando Norris getting on the radio one lap before we went green saying it's still very wet on the right-hand side of the grid. It's not safe to go. He said that because he wanted an advantage. Norris, being on pole, was starting on the right-hand side of the grid. But the fact of the matter is, it left him at a disadvantage being on that side of the grid. Piastri had the drier line on the left-hand side. Do I think Norris should have said that? No, because regardless of if it's wetter or drier on a certain part of the grid, that is the way the cookie crumbles. I don't think Norris getting on the radio, and it definitely influenced the FIA's decision on a rolling start. I don't think that the FIA should have taken into account Lando's message of it's wetter on my side of the grid, because I just don't think that's how it should be policed. We shouldn't be giving we shouldn't be giving advantages or leaning into the wishes of a particular driver over another. I heard a few people on Twitter and on Discord throwing around the British bias term. I don't think it was that. I think it was just they wanted to be extra safe and a little bit too safe. And I think the fact that Norris's message of it's too wet on my side of the grid influenced the decision, I don't like that at all, and I don't think that should be allowed to happen again. If it's wet on Lando's side of the grid, that is the way it happens. He's just got to deal with it. As a Formula One driver, he should be able to deal with that and manage his way around that issue. But I'm going to leave it there before I get a bit too political.
Let's go.
Okay, so moving away from the issue of the rain delay now, one thing I want to talk about before we get into the McLaren battle, I want to talk about Lewis Hamilton. Now, in my predictions, I predicted him for the win. That was a bit stupid. But that recovery drive from 19th, I think, no, not 19th, sorry, from 16th to 7th, I think needs to be commended more than it was. That was, I mean, it looked like the Lewis Hamilton we know and love and have seen countless times in the past. Watching Hamilton make his way through the field today, especially when he made that call to go from the inters to the mediums, he was the first to make that call as well. That looked like and reminded me of the 2008 British Grand Prix. That was Hamilton in his element, driving superbly, and we just haven't seen that in a very long time. Obviously, you know, he picked up wins last year, you know, in Silverstone and in Spa, but we haven't seen a Lewis Hamilton as confident as he was today in a very long time, and it was super, super good to see. It was also very surprising to see Ferrari agree with that call. Lewis was the one who I believe made the call to switch onto the mediums early, but I'm just surprised Ferrari went with it. Obviously, Ferrari, you know, they're known for having terrible strategy calls, like Leclerc in Hungary in 2022, in 2024, sorry, this year in Silverstone, you know, pitting on the first lap, on the formation lap. But the fact that Hamilton and Ferrari agreed upon this decision, I think it suggests that they might just starting to be getting along a bit better. Obviously, they had a very shaky start to the season. You know, the whole K1 button problem and dilemma from Australia. But I think now, just as we enter into the second half of the season, I think Lewis and Ferrari are starting to form that bond that maybe, you know, Lewis had with Bono at Mercedes. Obviously, you know, it's never going to be as strong as that because that was an unbreakable one. But I do think it does suggest that Lewis and Ferrari are getting a bit more comfortable, are getting to know each other a bit better. and are starting to agree on a few more things, which is a positive. Obviously, they brought in the upgrade, but I think having that good connection within the team is more important than having a good car. But it was very good to see. Okay, so now we're going to move on to what I think is probably the second biggest talking point of the race, and that is the Oscar Piastri versus Lando Norris battle. You could kind of call it a battle, but it was more of a bit of a goose chase rather than an on-track fight. But we're going to discuss it right now. So, firstly, we're going to start with the first lap, or rather, with just before the first lap, when the safety car came in. The first thing I wanted to talk about was Lando's strategy to go early. Obviously, the safety car was let go and was told to drive back to the pits, as it does, round about the exit or the entry of Stavelo Corner, which is the right-hander, before you get onto the straight before Blanchimont, and then the bus stop chicane. So, it went at its normal point. But, what I don't necessarily understand, or really understand, is why Norris went early. If this was Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Max Verstappen, they probably would have waited until the entry or the exit of the bus stop chicane to accelerate away from the field and try and build that gap. Lando Norris went and put the foot down well before Blanchimont, and I think that is what cost him a big chance at defending the lead, because obviously, you know, he had the alleged battery pack issue, which did cost him down the Camel Straight. But I think if Lando had left accelerating away from the field until the final chicane, might have given him a slightly better chance at, you know, keeping that lead ahead of Mr. Piastri. Because he went so early, Piastri was able to predict it, and through the chicane was able to stay right on Lando's gearbox, right through into the source, and then down Eau Rouge, up Raidillon, and down the Camel Straight, which is what allowed him to get past. I do genuinely think if Lando had waited, it would have caught Oscar out more, and it would have given him maybe not a 100% chance, but a higher chance of keeping that lead. Obviously, we heard on the radio, we heard from Zach Brown, that Norris did have a battery pack issue going down the Kemmel Straight. What do I think it was? Obviously, we heard Anthony Davidson on Sky F1 talking about how the car learns where to deploy the energy and where it learns to not. And people were saying, you know, oh, you know, Lando was deploying his battery under the safety car. I don't believe that for a second. Yes, Lando, I at least don't think is the best driver on the grid, but he is damn smart enough to know not to use his battery under the bloody safety car. So I think that's a load of rubbish, but I do think there was a battery pack issue. We did hear it from other drivers. Apparently, like we heard on the radio that Oscar had a similar issue towards the end of lap 1. So there were plenty of drivers reporting this problem, and I do think, while I definitely acknowledge that the problem existed, I do believe it just happened to Lando at quite possibly the worst time for him. It was just unlucky. We all had the issue. Piastri had it towards the end of the first lap into Blanchimont. Verstappen allegedly had it as well through the middle sector on lap 1 as the car was readjusting to the drier conditions. But I do just think Lando got the shit end of the stick with that problem and had it happen in the worst place, being down the Kemmel Straight and on the exit of Raidillon. And then we've got to talk about the other crucial thing, the mistakes, and well, the mistakes from Lando and the lack of mistakes from Oscar. Obviously, Oscar is leading the world title as of right now. After the Belgian Grand Prix, it is a 16-point gap with Oscar in the lead, Lando in second. And there is a reason for that. And I think We saw that reason today. There were just those tiny little errors which keep creeping into Lando's races, and I think that is what is costing him big this season. Obviously, he's had bigger moments, like in Canada, where he ran into the back of Oscar, and in Jeddah in Q3, where he spun on the exit of turn 4, collected the concrete wall, and that ended his session. So he has had a few big moments, but I do genuinely believe it is those small moments which are costing him. We see those small mistakes quite often. You know, a big example which I like to refer to is Singapore last year, where Lando was 31 seconds ahead of Verstappen out in front, and he locked up into the right-hander at the end of the lap and damn nearly hit the wall and ended his race. It's these small mistakes which are costing him this championship. We saw it in P1, I believe on roughly lap 26 or so. He got on the curb, he ran wide, and he had to lift off and sort of catch the car and come back on. He did the right thing to lift. I genuinely think if he had kept his foot in that car, in that save, and tried to just power out of it, he was going in the wall, and he was going in the wall hard. So he did the right thing to back off the throttle and gently correct the steering and slide back into the corner. But that was, I think, the biggest moment for Lando today. Obviously, he had the bigger lockup at turn 1 on about lap 30, which cost him about 0.6 of a second, and then he had the smaller lockup on the final lap. And if you add that all together, he lost 1.2 from the P1 moment, he lost 0.6 in the big lockup, and lost about 0.4 of the smaller lockup. That adds up to about 2.2 to 2.5 seconds, give or take a little bit. And we noticed he only finished 3.1 seconds behind Oscar. So I think if those mistakes hadn't have been made, he definitely would have been in with a higher chance of winning that race. And if Lando had won, instead of the gap being 16 points between the two drivers, it would have been 2 points, which for halfway through the season is an infinitesimally small gap. So I do think those mistakes did cost Lando today, and I do believe they cost him the win. He can't do anything about it now. It is just a fact of the matter. But I think if Oscar ends up winning this championship, it's these moments, like in Spa, like in Canada, like in Jeddah, we are going to look back on those moments and go, this is what cost Lando the title. And if they keep creeping in, you know, if we see a repeat of this in races to come, it doesn't look good for Lando. I have to be completely honest. But that is just a fact of the matter. He's got to just try and iron out these tiny little mistakes, because they're not big ones. They're tiny. But in this day and age of Formula One, when everything is so tight and so competitive, you know, like we see in the midfield, where Alpine are on like 20 points and they are last in the constructors. That is how close it is. With how close it is now, you know, losing 0.6 in one corner, going wide and losing 1.2 seconds, it costs a lot, and we saw it today. But then, as a polar opposite to Lando, we have Oscar, and we've seen it time and time again this year. Oscar just driving, he may not be in P1 every time he does this, but he drives flawless races. Oscar did not make one mistake today. He passed Lando with ease. He led out front, went on the mediums. He said no to the tyre degradation, and it showed. Like, this is what, if Oscar's going to win this title, it's going to be for that reason. Because his ability to stay cool under pressure, make a methodical choice, keep calm, and not make a single error is one of Oscar's best traits as a driver, and that is what will win him the title if he does win it come Abu Dhabi. But yeah, the polar opposites, Oscar, faultless, Lando with those tiny mistakes, and that is the difference between the two drivers at the moment. While Lando may have the momentum, I do believe that has swung back in Oscar's favour this weekend, but while he did have that momentum, there were still tiny errors creeping in. But he's just got to iron them out. Okay, so that brings us nearly to the end of the race review, but I've got a new segment for you all. Obviously, we're fairly new into this series, still learning the ropes, but I've now added, obviously, as some of you may know, I do a prediction series on TikTok, so we're going to be reacting to some of those at the end of this video. I've got them right here, as you can see. There they are. So we're going to go through this. So in 5th place, I had George Russell. And lo and behold, come on, I got it right. George Russell did finish in 5th place in today's Belgian Grand Prix. So, not too bad, I don't think. That's a pretty solid prediction. In 4th place, I had Lance Stroll. That did not come in, unsurprisingly. But, you know, I expected it. I sort of expected the race to be like Silverstone last time out. But it did not happen. And Lance did not have a good race. He did not finish in the points. He finished nowhere near the points. So, not going to be able to claim that one. 3rd place, I went for Pierre Gasly. Now, while he didn't get on the podium, he did score points. So, that is something. Obviously, I didn't get the prediction correct, but that is something. So, you know, I manifested a point for Mr. Pierre Gasly. So, that's not too bad. Moving on to 2nd place, I had Lando Norris. And come on, he finished in 2nd. That's pretty good. I'm going to take that. That is pretty solid stuff. So currently, out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 predictions, I've got 2 correct. So we're 2 from 7 right now. Not looking too bad. So Norris, I did get correct in 2nd place. P1 for the race, I went with Lewis Hamilton. Now, after qualifying, I was like, this is not coming in at all, regardless of what happens. He did do well to finish 7th, but it was never going to be the win, was it? But hey, I gave it a go. I went for something different. It didn't pay off, but oh well. Getting into pole position, I went with Charles Leclerc. P3 for Charles. Missed the prediction again, so still 2 from 7. But not even a bad effort. I gave my reasons. I said that the Ferrari had the upgrade. It wasn't dry qualifying like I predicted. So not too bad. I was close. So positives to be had there. And then finally, my bold prediction for the Grand Prix. I said that the Rosberg selfie curse strikes again. We did have Rosberg on the grid walk with Mr. Brundle, and I thought, hold on, this might genuinely be on here. But he didn't end up taking a photo, so that completely threw my bold prediction out of the window. But oh well, 2 from 7, not horrific. At least we got a couple, so I'm going to take it. Well, there we have it, everybody. That concludes another episode of Thomas's Race Reviews. Hopefully you all enjoyed. We're going to be back next week on Monday for the Hungarian Grand Prix predictions. Sorry, for the race review. I'm going to get the predictions video out on about Wednesday or so when I get around to it. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please feel free to subscribe, leave a comment. It helps me out, makes me feel good, and it helps improve the content. If you like the shorter stuff, go follow me on TikTok at LazGamez YT official. If you prefer the live stuff, go follow me on Instagram. That is at ThomasSinner72. And if you want to stay in touch with me, with all your fellow subscribers who enjoy the content, then please feel free to go join the Discord. There is a link in my bio on the YouTube page and on my TikTok page. So, that is it from me. Hopefully you all enjoyed. Stay safe, make awesome choices, have an awesome day, and I'm going to see you in the next video. Ciao, everybody.